truncated this time.
All right, we're going to get a round of applause going, man. Listen, it's a big deal right now for the pregame podcast. For sure, man. We are live from Tease Me Cafe.
It's a beautiful location.
Beautiful location. Great. I'm looking at a beautiful painting of Tamika Catchings, Indianapolis legend, Indiana Fever legend. Shout out to Darla for letting us in. Appreciate you, Darla. Thank you so much. Like, oh, we have to do this again? Okay, all right.
Shouting everybody out all the time.
Shout out to Murdoch, man. Murdoch in the back. He's still working.
Captain
in work
Murdoch
right now. Captain Murdoch, he's our hero.
Sure.
Gonna save the city.
Oh man. Man, shout out to Miss Khrisma for being here.
Yeah.
For sure, man.
Thank you for coming.
She is
Good morning.
The first guest for the Bless the Hustle speaker series, which is a collaboration between the pregame podcast, Side Hustle Economy, Bless the Hustle.
Yes.
You're familiar with the seminars, and now we are making sure that we're highlighting the important stories with the individuals that have been working through the Side Hustle Economy with their businesses and their platforms. That's why. So round of applause for that, man. Round of applause for that.
Some of the side hustlers.
For sure, man. The side hustlers doing their thing, going crazy. It's a beautiful Sunday morning in the great Circle City of Indianapolis, man. We're going to get right into it. So also, every single time we have a interview, we always start off the interview with the pregame podcast pop quiz. Just going to ask you just a flurry of questions.
I was going to say, wow.
It's fun.
You're going to do an amazing job.
I was like, what's your name again?
And so we going to get right to it.
It's lighthearted and fun for sure.
Yeah.
I'll go first. So I think it's really amazing that you're a black woman author. My favorite author is a black woman author.
Love that.
Who is yours?
Ooh, my favorite black woman author. Ooh, that's a toughie, but I'm gonna have to go with, it might be an oldie but a goodie, Maya Angelou.
Okay,
I received
Can't go wrong there.
Shout out to Maya.
That's always the right answer.
Yeah, he does
Seriously,
Maya
I know
impression.
why Cage Bird sings, and I just love it,
It's a very
especially in
good
her
book.
voice. It's like she came back to life.
Indeed.
I'll ask. Okay, so what's your favorite book adapted to a movie?
Is there any? Ooh,
That's gotta be some.
There's a couple.
Is there any? That's a real question. If I can count like comic book movies,
Sure. Those are books.
Yeah, I definitely love how they adapted Black Panther. There's a lot of changes that were made, but I think as a whole, it was still really good to bring that to life for our community and still continue that on after Chadwick Boseman passed.
So just to be clear, you're not a fan of these books to movies.
No.
That's all they do now.
No.
One of my favorites is very random and very old, and it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's a goodie.
You really be like, he did say she was gonna be a blueberry. She's a blueberry. It's crazy.
They did
crazy.
I don't
really
know.
happened,
I
for
think
sure.
I'm the total opposite because I'd be geeked for like books to turn to like switch to movies. Like there's some books I read in my childhood I would love for them to make movies.
See, maybe because I pay too much attention to the book that I'm like, you forgot
That's
X,
fair.
Y, and Z. Like
Yeah.
page
Fair.
16
Well, I
was
do
not
that
in
too.
the script.
I do that too. So it's got to be
true.
good.
Speaking of
Pause
children's
for
stories,
effect.
what's your favorite children's story?
Oh, my favorite children's story growing up, it was called The Girl Who Could Fly. And
Wow.
as the title
Not
suggests, it
familiar.
was about a girl who could fly. It was like Connor Prairie meets X-Men, where like this random girl who lived on a farm learned she could fly, so she went to this school for like gifted kids.
She's a mutant.
Yeah, she was.
What's the age range for that? Like,
Oh, that was a chapter book, but it was like, I probably read that like 2nd, 3rd grade.
about to get on my daughter's ass. I'm with you.
I got these.
What grade your
chapter
daughter
books
in?
for you.
She's in 5th.
Tales of fourth grade nothing. She should be. Judy Blume is her purpose right
Tales
now.
of 4th grade. Nothing.
Tales
Yeah.
of fourth grade
Are
nothing.
you there, Goddess? Meet Margaret.
Super Fudge.
I may be a little early for
I'll
that.
read
They
Super
bad.
Fudge
They
tomorrow.
are, they bad.
So it's still funny.
Super
I was
Fudge is-
accelerated
Super
reader,
Fudge
but
is
I don't
still
remember none of
funny.
that.
Yeah, all I got is Harry Potter.
Yeah, I didn't read Harry Potter.
Or
Yeah,
40
I
by
don't
5.
have
That was
Harry
my
Potter
favorite
either.
That
book.
was my bad.
I'm not a reader. I can read Super Fudge.
But some people
tomorrow.
weren't allowed. You know, back then it was like, oh, wizardry,
witchcraft.
sorcery. That's the devil.
It was quite
They
literally.
threw
Y'all
witchcraft on
y'all
Harry
crew are
Potter.
too
Real
intense for
quick.
me.
It's fiction.
It was literally sorcery.
What you
It
say,
was.
Christmas?
They had
I
a
say
point.
the Harry Potter fan fiction group, y'all just,
This a lot.
We just too much?
y'all be
you not
throwing
a
out
fan of that
spells
either?
to me, and I was just like,
I wouldn't do that, but it's one of my. It started me like, wow, I like to read these. I like to read, and Harry Potter did that for
And
me.
that's
So,
important.
and look, that's what's most
Whatever
important,
made you say I
actually.
want to read is important.
It opened his
That's real.
imagination up.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep.
I have a question for you. So when you are writing, what is something that if you have a snack, what would that snack be while you're writing?
Oh my God, I love Mike and Ike's. The tropical Mike and Ike's
All
specifically.
right, that's interesting.
I was too quick with that answer.
No, you
I mean,
wouldn't.
that means that's what it is.
No, you
you
wouldn't.
got some Mike and Ike's in your car right now, don't you?
I mean, I have them at home.
Mike and Ike's are pretty good.
They're solid. They're solid.
They
chips. I'm not-
solid.
yeah. They up
For
there.
sure.
They're not Skittles or anything like that, but
They're not
second.
Yeah.
second to what?
I don't know that genre of candy.
Okay.
It's the
Gotcha.
chopped chewy fruity candy. Better than a Jujube. Better than a Dot.
Better than Sour Patch Kids.
It's not better than the dot.
They're not better than Sour Patch Kids.
Sour Patch
They're
Kids.
better
The
than
watermelon.
Sour
better
Patch
than
Kids.
The watermelon ones are better.
I like a good Mike.
Honestly,
No,
Mike and
they're
Ike
not.
is delicious. They're
Honestly.
Mike
pretty
and
good.
Ike's are good, but you got them over Sour Patch Kids?
I do. They mess your tongue up.
Yeah, you can Sour Patch Kids. They're good, but they're sour. I don't always want sour candy.
I don't.
Supposed to sweet
I
candy.
do. I
sometimes.
prefer
Yeah.
sour over the sweet.
Yeah, you're a sour.
Maybe
star
that's
guy.
what it is, but let's move on, man.
This is who
Fair
we
enough.
are.
We ain't gotta argue.
Yeah, we ain't got to get into it. Y'all really starting off Sunday in a weird place for me.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody say that in my life.
Yeah,
Now you have.
Sour Patch Kids are a go-to. There's a Sour Patch Kids store.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no Mike and Ike store.
That's why you down 2 soldiers.
You right. I got 2 teeth missing. You right. Let's go ahead and get into it,
It's
man.
cutting you up.
Another round of applause for Khrisma for being here.
You
We
passed the
appreciate
test. It
you.
wasn't that hard. See? It's
Yeah, she
simple.
did very
Who?
well.
And honestly,
man.
you took
Really good
took way
job.
longer to think than most people.
And I should have started off the interview with this question. Where can everybody find you on your social media, your platform?
Yes, you can find me at Khrisma Antoinette. I am on Instagram and on Facebook. I also have my website, www.khrismaantoinette.com.
Awesome.
such a
Thank
classic
you.
name.
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah,
a,
it
like a
is.
queen.
Well, let's get right into it. I just want to know, when did you find out that you were passionate about writing?
Ooh, I probably found out I was passionate about it in middle school when I was going through a lot of like bullying and like discovering who I was. So writing was like my escape. For so long, I had like read books. Like I mentioned, like I have a bunch of favorite books. I don't love book to film adaptations, but reading books was my escape. But also at the same time, there was no reflection at the same time, like, yeah, I wanted to escape what was happening in my life, but there also
Right.
wasn't a character that
That
looked
was
like
you.
me.
Yeah.
It reflected to me. Like, I know today is Sunday, so I'm thinking about church, but my church book club was one of the first times I was introduced to a black author. I don't know if you know Sharon M. Draper.
Nope.
That's why
Not
when I
familiar.
said my favorite black woman author, Sharon Draper is my favorite black woman.
Sharon M.
love
Draper
when it
writes some
comes to
good
Boy,
books.
that boy be reading.
Oh, yeah,
Boy,
he's
boy.
Tears
cold.
of the Tiger.
Tears
is
of
my
Oh, I
Tiger,
read Tears of the
Forged by
Tiger.
Fire, November
Right.
Blues. She has some
Oh,
books
I
for
know
like
that
younger
one.
I
kids
did
too.
read
All
Forged
Heat.
by Fire.
Yep.
Excellent. I would like to see them turn that into a
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
I can
run it.
respect
I would
that
love
one.
it. Actually, I would like to see it as a TV show.
That'd
But
be
TV
nice.
shows,
A
see now,
limited
TV
series.
shows adaptations I like better. 'Cause
Limited
TV
series
shows you
do
have
get the
more
job
time
done. They
to
get the job
develop.
done.
On to
I'm
something.
definitely on that train these days. After The Best Man, I'm on that. Like, give me 8.
Yep.
That's interesting though. So you said the reading was like the escape, but you didn't get a chance to actually like create just yet. You had to figure out how that went for you.
Yeah, I had to figure out how to make a story that I actually wanted to see. Or even I was that kid I read the book and I didn't like the ending. And so instead of being mad, I was like, I'm just going to rewrite this for the author because they were struggling. They didn't know what they were doing.
Let me
That's
help you
right.
out.
They didn't land their plane.
No, they didn't land the plane in the right direction.
What would you say is the most difficult part of the writing process? If someone who wants to get into writing, is it kind of more so like, we actually have to know how to write a book? Is there a particular style or format or template you must use? What would you say is like, okay, if you want to get started writing, you should do this?
I would say trust your gut. I think that's something I've learned. Working on my
don't worry
first
about
book and also like working on my second book is that my first instinct or like my first few like gut impulses are usually right. And it's in that editing phase, when you're like fixing
Right.
word structures and making sure like certain plot points are hitting that you're like, you start questioning your story. When I talk to a lot of people now and they're like, I want to write a book and it's going to be about X, Y, and Z. That's your story, and that's amazing. Like, don't let someone change your idea just because they may not like it, or you may think like, someone else did it this way, so maybe I should do it like them. Like, the idea you have was given to you because only you can do it. So staying confident in that.
That's real. That's real.
It's Jim.
That's definitely
That
Jim.
was.
Can we? I want to get into Precious Love. I just want to know the backstory of Precious Love. It's the book that you wrote. And when did you write this book?
I released this book in July of 2022.
Okay, awesome. What was the inspiration behind Precious Love? You hold it up too for the camera.
I know.
What was the inspiration
Which camera?
behind this one
Ooh.
right here? This shoe. What was this inspiration behind Precious Love?
So the inspiration behind Precious Love was that it actually was supposed to be a chapter book. I know we were talking about that earlier. But as I was writing it, I wanted to write a story about my relationship with my father, my biological father, because he wasn't in my life growing up. And that was one of those reflections that I wanted to have because I wanted to know how to navigate those feelings and those lack of experiences, right? And I didn't get those in books. Typically when I did get a book about a black person and their parent wasn't around, it was very negative and it was all
the time.
all this extra stuff going on. And I'm like, I got a story, but it's not like that. Like, it's not to that extreme, but I still want to feel represented and feel like my story is being shown. So the story was supposed to be originally a chapter book about me and my biological dad and how I felt with that situation. But as I was writing it, I felt like I was writing a journal, and it was feeling very personal, and it was feeling very much so like I'm
Hitting
not.
a little too hard for you.
Yeah, I was like, this is too personal. So I was like, let me go into
Telling my
therapy.
life story in here, and that's not what I want.
I was like, this is not gonna help anyone, right? Like this is like venting right now. So I was like, let's go get into therapy. And let's change the story around. And so that's when it became more of a picture book, a children's book, and it became a story about me and my stepfather, and also like on like the side, my biological father. So it was like a meal. Me and my stepdad became like the chicken, and my biological father became like the mac and cheese on the side, or even like the dinner roll.
He's like, yeah, green.
You know, like on the side,
Give him
I
too
whack
much
it like,
credit.
yeah.
Very important to the meal, not the meal.
Needs to be
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah,
like the main course.
like the napkin.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, for sure.
That's
You have to have it.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
salt and
you
pepper.
have to.
like it's there, but it's not like the big focal point of the
Yeah.
story, because that was what I
called
was
him
trying to
Splenda.
get to, like in the story, right? That I don't have my father in my life, but I got a new father, and how did that affect our relationship there? Because even though my dad wasn't there physically, he was there emotionally, and that carried over into my relationship with my stepfather. So that's
Gotcha.
what the story is really about a girl who has a father-daughter dance at her school, and even though she has a dad in the form of her stepdad, that's not the dad that she actually wants to go to the dance with. And so how does she navigate
works through
those emotions, and so that she can have an experience that she deserves to have?
That's awesome. I saw that you've been to several different schools where you read the book, you share the book with students. How have they connected to this particular story?
Honestly, I was surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised that kids related to my story. Like that was
Right.
my intention. Like
This
I
is
knew
America.
that this is
it
America, right?
is.
Like
Right.
Hands go quick. My dad's not there.
There's a lot of
No,
greens
but for
dads.
real though,
Hands
like
go up quick.
kids will
Oh,
literally
that's
be out
like
there.
me.
A lot of mac and cheese dads.
All
out
out
there.
of it, whole lot of it.
They will, and you know, kids will tell you everything under the sun. Like
Quick.
stuff they're not supposed to talk about.
Quick.
Yeah, my dad, they're not together, but he be around sometimes. But she don't be telling him.
Yeah.
My actual dad.
Yeah.
No, that's legit
My
what a
uncle
kid
really
told
be
me.
there.
Me and the teacher in the classroom just looking at each other like, "Did you know this?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay,
Wow,
you have a good
that's
day at
what it's
school."
for. That's awesome.
These kids be loaded with information.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
They sponges and they be ready to ring out.
Yep, and that's important too, to give them that opportunity, like to ring it out. 'Cause even when those experiences happen, like the teachers are like, "I did not know Johnny was going through this." Like now you do know, because they never had like that opportunity, that doorway, right, to start vocalizing what's going on at home.
Gotcha. And I want to know just, what makes your writing or this particular story, your writing style unique? As you think about all the children's books that are out there and all the books that individuals can read, why does Precious Love stand out in your opinion?
I feel like it stands out because I feel like there's two storylines happening. This is me like trying not to be like too much of like a writing nerd.
Go, get in your bag.
Get your Harper on.
You know, back in the day, there was that little arc, right? Like you have your introduction, your rising action, your climax, and
Remember
then
these words?
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you remember those words, you know? Flashback to elementary school, right? And so I feel like in the story, there's like that physical storyline, right? Of like, okay, she learns there's a dance, she wants to go, she's gonna ask him, he's gonna go. Like there's that physical storyline there, but there's also that emotional storyline there as well, which I feel like a lot of books don't typically get into the nitty gritty of like the emotional storyline. So yeah, physically she sees this dance, but emotionally, how does she feel like knowing this is happening? How does she feel knowing that she has to go to this? So really getting into those emotions was something I wanted to do for the reader, for anyone who read it, whether they were a kid, a parent, a teacher, someone in the community reading it to someone, like to get those emotions out of it as well.
Everybody can be impacted. Mm-hmm. That's important. That's an important piece of it. I want to talk about your future projects. So I know that you have a book coming out in 2023. Is this book similar to Precious Love, or what can we expect from the new Khrisma release?
Oh, thank you. This is cool. So for my next book, my goal as an author is to showcase different family structures. Like
Okay.
we already know there's not enough Black literature on bookshelves. Like I
Right.
think the
Facts.
statistic is like less than 12% for just children's books alone.
That's
which
wild.
you know, I can't live with my phone on 12%. Okay, so I don't know how we as a society are living with 12% of representation. And so my goal is to also showcase different family structures along with that, because if we're already not showcasing our faces in books, I know we're not showcasing what's going on in our houses.
Wow.
And so Takara's story was about a blended family and an absentee father. And my next character, his name is DeAndre, and he has an incarcerated father. So to keep in that trend of showcasing different family structures there, and showcasing like how do I navigate that experience, right, at a young age, right, where all this stuff is going on and you want to vocalize it to your friends or maybe to your teachers, or for DeAndre's case, he wants to be proud of the fact that his dad is in jail because he knows his dad is a good person who just makes bad choices.
Right.
So
Wow.
how do you showcase that to kids?
Interesting dynamic
I
there.
know, right? That's what I really want to do.
Needed as well.
I feel for you though, because it's like that dance of So you want to touch on these stories, but then there's going to be the naysayers that say, why she's only focusing on like the negative part. About, like, what about the regular stuff?
Yeah, and that's the feedback I get a lot from people, and so that's something I take into consideration as well, of like showcasing, like but you gotta showcase like the whole picture too. Like there's good days and there's bad days.
Of the 12%, a lot of the stories are probably of the very perfect setting where everything's good. So the other kids don't have any percent; they have zero. Don't talk about dads in jail. My dad doesn't get books.
No. The illustration is going to be tough on that one.
It is. It definitely is. So, like, to help me, since I never lived that experience myself, like, Precious Love was mostly based off my own lived experience.
Right.
But for this next book, like, my uncle was in jail, but how that affected me affected my cousin, who that was her dad, like, completely differently.
Gotcha.
Like, I always saw my uncle every once in a while anyway. So I talked to people who actually had that lived experience, whether their parents were in jail, whether they work with that population, so I could understand it better, because I didn't want to just pull out my Tyler Perry hat and be like, okay, I think this, and this is what's going on.
Never pull out the Tyler Perry.
Yeah, keep that hat.
Keep that one in the closet.
That's
You
a
can't. Double entendre. Don't even
ask me.
Tyler Perry is not that bad.
He is. So I do want to ask. So I feel like the gifting process of a book like this, I feel like you almost overstepping some. So maybe this one's probably a little easier because we see a lot of stepfathers, but like to give a kid a book because you know his dad's in prison. It's like, I thought about you when I saw that. How does that go? How do you want that to be like given to people?
Oh, how does it go when I give it to people? That's really good. I never thought about it that way.
That's specifically
before.
a kid, like, for example, you have a kid, I know your dad locked up. I got you something.
Yeah, I got you something. Here's
What
a
does
book.
that kid say? Like, why you give me this? It's
Yo,
hard to navigate those emotions.
it really is. So I wouldn't even like phrase it because like I know your dad's locked up, so here is your gift. But like here is a gift for you, like on your journey.
And it'll
of
hit
life.
you later.
It'll hit you later. Like I think about that. That's also something I do when I write books. Like going back to like your earlier question about like the writing process. I imagine like what kid would read this book, and so for my next book, I imagine this kid that is based off. It's a real kid that I've worked with in a summer program a few years ago, where his mother was incarcerated and his father actually died of an overdose. Like, and so he was in the house with him for a week before anyone came to find him as a kid.
Wow.
And so working with him in the program, we actually did read a book about an incarcerated dad, and that triggered this boy like really badly, just considering all the things that he went through, and he had to be 7 or 8 years old. And so as I write this next book, I think about him like in that way of like, I don't want to make it feel like, okay, your life's really tough, and like, you know, I'm sorry, here's $20.
I'm
go
selling this thing.
You know, it's gonna
It might
fix your
help you out
life,
some,
right?
Yeah,
But
it's tough.
just here's this for you. You know?
I mean, that's the like the path she's on. She's kind of got to navigate all this stuff because it's needed. You just got a harder path than writing about rainbows.
The book is neat. It's going to relate to a lot of different
That can be
people.
tough, too.
And I think when I was a kid growing up, you think about the book fairs, and you want to naturally find something. The first thing the media center specialist, the librarian back in the day, says is find something that connects to you, and find something you're interested in. And so I think there's going to be a lot of individuals, and you know, it may not be the one you want to check out
when you finish your thought.
It may not be the one you want to check out, or like you know, but I think that's needed, and somebody's going to be able to say, you know, I need to read that book because that's definitely going to hit home for me. And I feel like that's important, for sure. And I have not heard of a story like this before, or a book out there that's similar to this. So I'm excited that you're coming out with something like this for sure.
Thanks.
Can we not say librarian no more? Neither we can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say you gave her quite the title.
I just feel like
media center specialist.
Sanitation engineer.
You said librarian or media center specialist. Is that one of those words that's canceled?
no, it ain't.
I'm a library science student, so that's a new phrase that they're using.
Okay.
The specialists, they just do they do a lot more.
They're the CEO of the library.
Yeah, and technology as well.
I don't want to
So it's-
offend. Like I don't want to be like, hey, librarian, hey. It's not what I do.
Nah.
My bad.
And
I'm an MCS.
And they're scientists. They handle business in multiple ways, but I think the new thing is media. Whatever. I'm sorry.
That's
No,
fine.
I didn't know. I had to make sure I don't want
Anybody
to
was
offend.
going to know
what
you
I
was
know
gonna
now.
know. Yeah,
I've never heard this. I didn't know if librarian was the thing of the past.
I'm calling them bookkeeps.
See,
Those are people that work at half price books. That's not the same.
Wow,
Hey,
you're not
bookkeep.
wrong.
but
yeah.
nah, that's amazing. Shout out to you for that.
Thanks. That's also like to your point. That's why in the book, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I also put like discussion questions and activities at the end of the book.
Ooh,
Because it's a
okay,
tough
thank
thing.
you.
Put homework
right?
back
That's
there.
how-
Thank you.
Yeah, you put homework back there.
It's a little guide, right? Like when I
You
wrote
helping
this,
out a teacher out there somewhere.
work smarter, not harder. Okay, I'm a 2 for 1. You know, a workbook and a book. Okay, dinner and a
Nice
show.
lookout. Well, we got worksheet too, guys. Don't you worry.
Don't
Right.
you twist it. Rip that back page out.
Have a 15-minute discussion with your dad about this.
Both of them.
Yeah, the
them
chicken
together.
and the mac and cheese. So I want to talk about just the illustrators, the individuals behind the artwork, because I feel like that's a big part of children's books, right? It's almost like it's a little bit of a pick and roll, a much needed collaboration. How did you start on the illustrator for Precious Love?
Yes. So I always like to give this disclaimer. My illustrator is not black, but even though she's not black,
Shame.
I educated her.
Okay.
Okay, she got some PI training.
You know, so when I was reaching out to different illustrators, I gave them like to do a test image of Takara, my main character, right? And so when I got that all back, I was like, okay, this is the person whose style I like the most. But Homegirl was whitewashed. And I was like, look, I want to work with you, but you're going to have to learn.
Get these curls right, baby
Get these
girl.
curls right. Learn what color
Line
is.
him up.
Like I think I had to tell her to darken her like 4 or 5 times. Like it's a little bit more,
man.
a little more. But then she got it right. Like once she got it, she got it.
Yeah.
Okay, but she just had to be educated in that way. And so I really appreciated that collaboration with her. Is that even though it may not have been like what she was typically used to doing, I really did love her style. And so teaching her that like, hey, her hair needs to be a little bit more curly. Like even with him, he don't have no texture here. But in the book later on, I was like, you need to ask him like definition. Like he got some curls too. Okay.
And that gives her career depth. Honestly, she's able to go and navigate and say, "Oh, I can do it. I can do a lot of different things."
I can do colored people
Catch a
now.
man a fish.
That's what she
Catch a
said.
man a fish.
I can do
People
colored
now.
people now.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
confident.
that's it. That's
Charisma
on her LinkedIn
talking.
I
already.
mean, well, 'cause I color them. Come on.
That's So speaking of that, how does you being the author? What does like the community of like you publishing a book look like? Is there like I know in a lot of communities there's gatekeeping.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of ins and outs. How did that work for you?
So it's interesting you bring up gatekeeping. I think there is from the traditional author standpoint, but I don't know if I can call it gatekeeping or their lack of knowledge because they're traditionally published.
Okay.
So I'm a self-published author, which means I did that stuff myself. You know, like
Yeah.
like I did all of that, like from the copywriting, all that minus the illustrations. I did not do this. I can do a stick figure. So like the self-publishing community, we're very much so giving because we didn't have like Penguin or Random
Right.
House or like HarperCollins and all of them being like, okay, here's your team of 50 people to do your one project. It's just you by yourself.
Independent.
Yep. And so those self-publishing communities, if like on Facebook, for example, I'm in one, like if you ask a question, they're very quick to give you an answer in like less than 24 hours, somebody in that group of people. But
That's
like
nice.
traditional publishers, it's a little more, not traditional, like traditional authors, a little bit more iffy. But I don't take it as like a negative thing. I take it as a fact of they had a whole team doing it for them. So they genuinely, I don't think sometimes have the answer of how to do certain things because they didn't have to do it.
That's real. Go ahead, Ree. You got a question?
I was gonna. How do you feel about the depiction of authors, like in like regular cultural things? Like the one we've seen recently was Harper. Like they always make the author like super self-entitled, like they're all about themselves. They're super selfish. How do you view yourself as an author? Because there is a little bit of narcissism to it because you have to truly feel like what you bring to the world has to be seen by other people. Like they have to hear what I have to write. So
Yeah. I really try to be like a community visionary, like community driven in what I do. That's why I talk to so many people for this next book because it's not my lived experience. And no, I can't write a book that fits every single person's individual experience, but to the best that I can to understand who my audience is, to try to suit them is what I try to do, like to be an author for the people. That's how I like to be considered as an author. I think sometimes authors do get a bad rap because at the end of the day, they are trying to sell their product and like it is the best thing since
trying to
sliced
fix your
bread.
life.
Yeah, like they're fighting against books like The Lord of the Rings that's been out for years, and you know the Bible's still the highest selling book in the country, in the world for years and years. Like they're trying to beat all these different people. So there is that level of pushing yourself out there that the authors have
yeah,
to
the
do.
Bible's definitely the thriller of books.
And-
It's
and
like it's diamond.
Been doing numbers
It
for
is,
a long
yeah.
It's gonna keep doing numbers.
Triple uranium at this point. I have a question for you. So you know, what is your perspective on the industry? Because I feel like,
Ooh.
on one hand, it
never
seems
gonna
as
get a
though
book
maybe
deal
as
now.
no, maybe I'm talking too much about myself, but I feel like you know, are people still reading like they should? You know, growing up, reading was a big deal. And you think about all the digital space of literature and how do you take all this in? Is this something that is it a lost art? Like, do people still read? You know, and what's your thoughts on that?
You know, people still do read. Like I mentioned, I'm in a library science program right now. I'm getting my master's in library and information science. So that's a conversation we have all the time of like, thank you, because it's hard. But you know, like we talk about our library still
super
needed.
reading, like not regular reading, big reading.
Okay, if you heard the audiobook I was listening to on the way here. But you know, we talk about if libraries are still necessary in our society, like if people still read, like do people actually use libraries and everything that comes with them, from the media specialist to like regular book collection and stuff like that.
Right.
But I still think that the industry is still needed. It just needs to be updated, needs to evolve, right? Like one of the biggest things we talk about in library sciences, at least I bring up because because I care about it, is like representation in literature. Like if we're going to be an institution that promotes like literature and learning and growth, we need to actually showcase someone besides the majority.
Real.
Like that just is what it is. There's no neutrality in this. You need to represent it in everything that you do. And so I think that's the struggle of ways that the industry needs to update, is to actually showcase someone besides the majority of people.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And you are not a librarian. Like what you just described, I would never call you a librarian.
Some science to it.
There's science to it, for sure.
You can't get a master's.
Number
one,
organized all them books.
Y'all still using Dewey system?
That's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm in my second to last semester and I ain't never met Dewey or any of his decimals. Okay.
That always seems so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Dewey just knew
But
people.
man, all right. I want to get into the hustle. I know you've been working with Murdoch, Side Hustle Economy. How has that benefited you and your strategy with making sure that Precious Love and your future books get out there and people can hear about them?
Yep, definitely a big shout out to the Side Hustle Economy, because it really connects me with a bunch of side hustlers here in Indianapolis. Because like I mentioned, like, yeah, I have like self-publishers in these Facebook groups, but it's not like I can meet up with them at a Tease Me or at a certain event, like talk to them face to face, get to really know them and connect with them. But through the Side Hustle Economy, I'm able to make those connections with people who are able like to uplift me when things go wrong. I remember when I was first writing a book and like I didn't have like the tangible product, right? So no one really wanted to listen to me when I was like, oh, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Like I want to do a book. But like once I have the book now, everyone's like, oh my God, come here. But like, those people in that community, before I even had this book, were willing to support me. You know, they were like,
so you developed Precious Love throughout your experience with the Side Hustle Economy. Round of applause for that, man. That's amazing. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
100%, like to be able to show like, oh wow, this is what the cover looks like, this is what the girl like, to share that like energy. Like, yes, you get to learn so much from, like, I went to your guys' seminar about podcasting, even though I'm not there yet in life.
It's okay.
It's all right.
I appreciate that.
Take your time.
We're not there yet either, apparently.
No, at all.
But you know, it's like learn all this different stuff, but also like that community aspect, like you can't buy that and you can't find that everywhere. It's not always genuine, you know, it's not always giving out of your heart, it's not always everything that you want and desire. But when it comes to like online communities or faraway communities everywhere you go, but the Side Hustle Economy is one of those rare places where you really get that, and you get people who may not understand everything, but they're willing to help you, or they're willing to cheer you on regardless of if they understand it or not, because they see you succeeding, and that is all that matters.
Yeah, she's got a WWE promo.
Yeah, that was amazing right there. For sure.
You for the commercial.
Yeah, I know.
You can have that cut.
Yeah,
it's all yours.
Cut that up. Send that to me. Nah, that's amazing, man. And before we get out of here, I just want to, you know, I think about individuals I know that are authors, and, you know, maybe something I'm interested in one day. How do you go about marketing your work? You know, I know that you're independent. Is there a need? Let me back up. Excuse me. Is there a need or want, not necessarily a need, but maybe a want to be published by a traditional publishing company, or are you happy with making sure that you're independent, and what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I'll say this so just on the record for like one day when I'm big and famous on this day in 2023. I would love to be traditionally published. Like the goal for me, I think, as a Black woman who's gone through a lot of like adversity in her life, I would love to self-publish until someone comes to me. Like I don't want to come to them and be like, can you please see the value in my story? Like I don't.
You want them to call you?
Yeah, I'm not a beggar. I am, but like not in that way. Like I'm not gonna ask you to validate something that I know is real and relevant.
Right.
Yeah, like I want you to come to me.
I like that.
And there's a lot of independence that comes with being a self-published author, because I get to have full creative control, right? There's no like, oh, well, the climate of the world is, or like, this might not be the right time to release this book, and all those extra things. And so I would love to be traditionally published, but I'm okay where I am right now being self-published, to have that control, even if it is a little bit harder, because I can do a lot more. Like going back to your thing about marketing and niches.
Thank you.
Like, you know, children's books, like, you know, you get to segment yourself as I'm a black children's book author, but also like I write Black stories, and I am a Black person, because that's a whole different niche, right? People may not see that, but there's a lot of Black stories out there that are not written by Black people.
That's real.
That are given to our kids and get so much publicity.
That is so messed up.
It's
do they still do reads in schools? Like go to the school and actually read your book out to the kids?
Yeah.
She's done that.
I do that to kids. I enjoy that a lot.
When?
When the kid was like,
Put in the
I
time.
thought that was like personally, like on the side. I know you did. Okay, never mind.
That's when that happened.
She said summer program. I thought it was like some one-on-one.
No, summer program was the kid about the new book.
Wow, look at you guys. It's like a pop quiz over my own.
It is. Yeah.
It's like it didn't just happen.
It happens all the time. It won't be the first
Damn,
or last
don't
time.
happen to me.
But welcome to the episode, man.
Yep. Damn.
Thank you.
That's what it feels like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome. So here at Pregame Podcast, here with Khrisma.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Deuce Chase, first time on air. Thank you. But nah, man. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Man, round of applause for Khrisma.
That's good.
Round of applause for Precious Love. Round of applause for Side Hustle Economy. This is phenomenal. Make sure you check out her work. If we are interested, we want to go ahead and cop and purchase. Where can we make that happen?
Awesome. So if you want to buy a book of Precious Love, it is on my website, www.khrismaantoinette.com.
Let's go.
It is also on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles as well.
Ooh. It'll get there.
Yep.
It'll definitely show up.
For sure. And that brown box, that blue tape on it, it'll be there. Stop playing. All right, man. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
All right.
Next.